everyone. Welcome back to another episode with the Crime and Coffee Couple. My name's Allison.
Hey, my name's Mike.
Hi, Mike.
Hey, darling, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Pretty darn good.
Yeah, you look good. You look put together, and you got some nice makeup going on. You're just a very good looking lady.
I'm wearing my glasses because I don't know if it's allergies or what, but my contacts are just giving me a very hard time lately. I'm very dry.
Probably mold in the house, I would say. I think there's probably black mold just in the walls. And you know what? It's been a good life.
It's been a good life. I've lived 46 years, and black mold apparently has taken me down.
And what more could you ask for, really?
Not much more.
Yeah, you got everything you've ever needed. Like my dad said, he was on a trip with us in Vegas, and it was my brother's 21st birthday. There was like 10, 15, 20 of us all together. And he's like, I don't know, I could just die happy. And I'm like,
if I died today, I'd be happy.
And we're like, he's not married yet. You don't have any grandkids yet. I mean, there's still a lot of things to do, Dad. So let's just like pump the brakes on that a little bit.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah, but now he's got tons of grandkids. So now he could probably die happy if he wanted to.
I hope he doesn't.
I hope he doesn't
now,
either.
but I want him to die happy, but just not now.
Right. So how's life been going?
Good. I've been baking lately. I baked a sourdough loaf today, as well as some peanut butter cookies yesterday.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The peanut butter cookies are going over at this house like just craziness. It's like so addictive. They're so dang good. I don't know. Are they better than regular peanut butter cookies?
Well, they're the sourdough discard. Since I've got my little sourdough creation, you use 75 grams of sourdough into the cookie thing. But I don't know. Like, I wouldn't have any idea there was sourdough in it.
The first batch you ever made, because this is like the third batch. And I think this, I don't know. The first batch you feel like you could, and then the second and third, not as much.
I would imagine that you could probably taste maybe a texture difference. Maybe it gives moisture to it. Yeah. I don't know what the role of the sourdough is in it, but the cookies are great. Our son's like, these are crack.
Yeah.
So we just can't even keep them in the house. Like, as quick as I put them out, they're gone.
The second batch were a little bit different.
Oh, yes. I put them in the oven, and then I set our Amazon Show or something like that, or Echo Show, whatever the hell it's called. And then I'm like, I'm going to go off. And so I put a 9-minute timer, and then I went off to wash my face. And I'm washing my face, and it just dawns on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, the cookies. I come running out of the bedroom. I smell burned in the air, and Mike's sitting on the recliner. And I'm like, did you shut the timer off?
And I was like, oh man, I think I did. And you're like, you think you did? I'm like, yeah, I vaguely remember, because I was looking at TikTok like an idiot, and I was just mindless, and I heard like the thing like do 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 do. I'm like, off. And I'm like, okay.
That blows my mind. Like, in a million years, I would never hear a timer and just dismiss it without cross-checking what this timer means.
I didn't think I would ever do that either, but dang it if I didn't happen to me.
Because our son has done it before. I'm like, that timer is clearly set for a reason.
Yeah, and he does it mostly out of mindlessness too. He's just walking around like, oh, okay, it's on. I'm going to shut it off. Boop, boop, boop. And that's exactly what I did. And I feel like a complete monster and an idiot because of it. And I'm so stupid. So
it's certainly not the end of the world.
Yeah.
We had to throw away maybe 8 cookies?
Yeah, well, she got a lot of hands. She's like, throw them all away. Just throw them away. I'm done.
I did not say that. I pulled them out of the oven. I said, you be the one to throw them in the trash. I can't do it.
You walked away and you're like, just throw them away. I'm done. I'd throw them away. And you were like walking away.
I also had mega PMS. I'll say that.
Yeah, that would have been nice to know while you were doing that. And I was like, I think I could save some of these. So I did throw out, like 8, but I think like 20 were edible. So
yeah, and that's why I had you do it, because in haste, I would have just thrown them
You
all
would
away.
have, absolutely. She gets in these moods where it's just like everything's gone. Like if it's like not nailed down, it's not safe at all.
I was in a mood this morning because we're recording this on a Saturday, and I had the house quiet to myself, so I was just organizing drawers and just getting rid of all sorts of stuff.
Good for you. You like that.
I always have it in my head, like, if we were to move tomorrow, would I want to take this item with me?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, throw it in the garbage.
Yeah, it's a very minimalist approach, and I like it, I must say. You do a good job. And part of the reason I was on TikTok so much was because I've just been getting obsessed with TikTok. I'm now trying to create my own channel. So I'm not going to share it on here.
Completely unrelated to the podcast. Why wouldn't you share it? It's called Decent Guy Mike.
Okay, Decent Guy Mike.
I don't know why you wouldn't share it.
Because I'm not like trying to get people to. I mean, I am, but I just kind of want to see what happens. I'm just being me. It's completely me being me and just talking to the camera, and that's all it is. I'm like, I don't know, just having a good time with it.
But I think our listeners would want to maybe check it out if they were curious.
Yeah, if you want to see what I do every single day, definitely check it out, because it's just me talking to the camera and showing you what's going on in the house. So it's I don't know. It's a little entertaining. I think I'm a kind of a decently funny individual. I'm a decent guy. That's why I say
decent guy, Mike.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just like so interesting. All the different like ideas. Cause as you like try to get more followers and you get these people that are like, if you want to grow to 1,000 followers, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you try some different things.
Yeah.
And I put pictures of our cute little dog on there, our cats and all that.
I honestly think your videos are really well done and they're entertaining.
Thank you. That's because you're my wife.
No, not at all. I truly mean that. I always say you're such a great writer too.
I try. I would love to write for this show at some point again. Just takes too much time to do the editing and stuff.
We are outsourcing to our son.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
He's doing like short videos.
Yeah. If you see shorts on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, the Instagram Reels, they're done by our son.
Yeah.
So give us a little grace. He's only 16. He's trying to learn. If you like recently saw one, you're like, wow, that one is garbage. Hot garbage. That was him.
Yeah.
So,
and we had a discussion. We're like, you can't put out hot garbage.
no, we're deleting the hot garbage. It's only good stuff from here on out.
Straight to the trash.
Yeah. So there was for a little while we were paying somebody to do it, and it was pretty okay.
He was coming up with some good videos.
Yeah, he was definitely doing a great job.
Yeah.
It's just like, we're not a mega conglomerate yet to be able to pay somebody all this money.
And we'd like to keep it in the family if we can.
Absolutely. Tax reasons, everything.
Yeah, it's just good for him because he's, like we said, he's playing baseball and it's kind of hard for him to get a job because he always has workouts and practices and games.
Yeah. So take a few hours every time and do some video editing. You're good.
On that note, shall we dive into this?
Yeah.
We're going to get into this cup of coffee and it's going to be a murky, ugly one.
Ugh.
And this is the story of Stacey Castor. This is a listener suggestion from Carolyn. So thank you so much, Carolyn. So after losing 2 husbands within 5 years, many people viewed Stacey Castor as an incredibly resilient woman who carried on despite the horrific tragedies that she had faced, because that's a lot. That's a lot of loss in 5 years. So on top of the untimely deaths of her husbands, she was also faced with another tragedy when her daughter fell ill, and we will get more into that shortly towards the end. So, however, eventually investigators began to wade through a sticky web of lies, and the truth proved to be far uglier than anyone could have ever imagined.
Once there's 3 people getting sick around somebody, and
you start to wonder.
Yep.
Yeah, so it all began in 1990, and this is when, after 3 years of dating, Stacy married her first husband. This is Michael Wallace. So they were married on April 7th, 1990, and after a small ceremony at home, the couple began to build their lives together in Weedsport, New York, and here they welcomed 2 daughters. This is Ashley and Bree. So while Michael worked as a mechanic, Stacy was working as an ambulance dispatcher. Stacy described Mike as being larger than life, someone who was always the life of the party, and if you needed anything, Michael would be there to hand it to you. Whether he could give it to you or not, he would want to give it to you. So sadly, though, their marriage was not a happy one throughout, and they both went on to stray in the relationship. Stacy attributed many of their issues to the fact that Michael did struggle. He had apparently a drug and alcohol addiction. And then adding to their troubles, they were working opposite shifts. So they were rarely seeing one another. So Stacy was working during the day and Michael was working more so in the evening. So they were basically like ships passing in the night. And when that's happening, you're rarely connecting. And it almost becomes like you're strangers to one another.
Or just like roommates. And you're like kind of just like, all right, yeah, okay, you pay the bills and you do this. Did you pay me for this bill? And yeah, you don't have no time to just hang out.
Yeah, it's tough. So Michael suddenly began feeling ill right around Christmas of 1999. He found himself feeling really fatigued. He was sleeping a lot. He was having a hard time walking and talking, balance issues and that sort of thing. So according to Ashley, this was their 11-year-old daughter at the time, there was one occasion when her dad was on the couch, I believe he was sleeping, and he suddenly sat up, he vomited across the coffee table, and then laid back down on the couch and fell back asleep as if nothing was wrong or nothing happened.
Wow.
And obviously that's very concerning.
I hate when that happens. Just get up and puke all over myself and fall back asleep.
I mean, I could see if someone was like blackout drunk and that happened, but that was not the case.
It's not normal.
So when he eventually sought medical treatment, the doctor was trying to figure out what was going on with him. They were questioning maybe he had like an inner ear disorder, something that was throwing his balance off in that way. So after the Wallace family rang in the new year, this is of 2000, Ashley came home from school and she found her dad lying on the couch. And she said that he was making what looked like funny faces. But she had a routine when she got home from school. She would immediately call her mom and say, "Mom, I'm home and I'm going off to pick Bree up at her school." And that's what she did. So by the time Stacy came home from work that day, she found her 38-year-old husband unresponsive on the sofa. So she immediately dialed 911 and Michael was transported to the hospital. And sadly, he did not survive. He died. And doctors were only speculating what they thought could have been the problem. And with this, they thought maybe he had a heart attack. So despite being a previously healthy, not even yet 40-year-old man, Stacy decided to just say, okay, I believe you. It's a heart attack. We're not going to do an autopsy to determine whether or not that's the case. And that was the end of it. So according to a friend of Stacy's, at the time of Michael's death, she had been contemplating divorce. But like I said, they were in the midst of the holiday season. They're celebrating Christmas. They're ringing in the New Year. And apparently Stacy didn't want to disrupt the holidays. So she told her friend, I'm going to start pursuing things after the holidays settle down. So now with Michael gone, she went on to collect $55,000 in life insurance. So then moving on to about 3.5 years later, Stacy married her second husband. This is David Castor. So she met David in 2001 after he hired her to work as a secretary at his heating and air conditioning company. So the two were married on August 16th, 2003. So according to Stacy, her new husband was a very hard worker. He was very conscientious. He had a love of the outdoors. He just wanted to do all sorts of outdoor activities. So he loved spending time on his snowmobiles, his four-wheelers, as well as his boat. And she said that he was a huge support and just a strength in her life when they got married and met. So being a second marriage for each of them, they were coming together to form a blended family. Stacy had her daughters, Ashley and Bree, while David had a grown son, David Jr., from a previous marriage. So according to Stacy, her girls weren't very happy with the situation as they moved on and got married because they didn't want to see David as someone who was trying to replace their own father. And she felt that David was clashing with her daughters, expecting them to do everything that he said without question. But over time, they did start to fall into a routine and get comfortable with one another, and Ashley and Bree began to warm toward their stepfather. Now, I will tell you, though, despite this, tensions did remain within the household. Apparently, Stacy wasn't exactly on the same page with David in terms of how he liked to spend his money. So that was a point of contention in the relationship. So now on Monday, August 22nd, 2005, this is less than a week after the couple had celebrated their second anniversary, Stacy placed a 911 call and told the dispatcher that her husband hadn't shown up for work that day, and she didn't know where he was, what was going on, and if he was okay. So she explained that she was concerned because she had last spoken with him on the day before, this is Sunday, at 5 a.m. when he locked her out of their bedroom during the entirety of that weekend. So she was hoping, I'm guessing she must have been at work at this point. It sounded like she wasn't home when she placed this call. So she's telling the officers that she basically wanted them to go over to the house and do a welfare check to see if David was okay. So Stacy later admitted that she had gotten into an argument with David because he wanted to take a 2-week vacation at the end of August. While Stacy wasn't on, this trajectory, she didn't want to leave Bree behind, and then Ashley was unable to go because she had to work. So she said that their argument began on Friday. Apparently they started arguing in the garage. It went on for like the course of 7 hours until David got upset. He took a bottle of Southern Comfort and he marched into their bedroom, closed the door, and then locked himself in.
For the whole weekend?
For the entire weekend, and he refused to come out.
Man.
Now, I will tell you, this is Stacy's version of events.
Oh, right.
So police responded to the Castor home and found Stacy outside, and she looked visibly upset. She expressed her concern for her husband's safety and mental well-being and told the officers that he did keep a gun under their bed, and she was worried that he may have done something to harm himself. So Stacy said that when David first locked himself in the bedroom, she just assumed that he, obviously he took this bottle of Southern Comfort, that he just got drunk. He was just sleeping it off. So she said she had put her ear to the bedroom door during that weekend, and she did hear the sounds of him snoring. She didn't hear anything concerning. So police approached the bedroom door. After their knocks are now going unanswered, they decided to kick the door in. So as they entered the bedroom, they found 48-year-old David lying naked and face down and unresponsive in the couple's vomit-coated bed. It was not a good scene whatsoever.
Yeah, something's definitely fishy there. I mean, you got to come out at some point just to get some food or something. Like, you can't just lock yourself in a bedroom all weekend with one bottle of Southern Comfort. And it's just, I don't know, you get more Southern Comfort at the very least, right?
So there were 2 glasses on the nightstand. This is situated right next to the bed. One was half full with a green liquid, while the other had some remnants of juice. And then under the bed, investigators found a bottle of antifreeze on its side and the top was off. And this was the source of the green liquid in the cup that sat next to the bed half full. So there was also a bottle of apricot brandy and a bottle of diet cranberry juice on the bedside table. There was no suicide note to be found, and rather than suicide via gunshot wound, as Stacy had initially feared, David appeared to have died from an apparent suicide by antifreeze ingestion. So when officers came out of the bedroom, they found Stacy there, and she is asking them, "Is David okay?" And it was too late. He was already deceased by the time they kicked that bedroom door in. So Stacy explained that David had been recently struggling with depression after he lost his father, and this happened a few months earlier. And she believed that he was drinking heavily that weekend and he committed suicide as a result of his worsening depression and grief. So the medical examiner, of course, did the autopsy and the investigation and confirmed that David's cause of death was suicide from antifreeze poisoning, and the case just seemed to be closed. Now, I will tell you, though, that this did not sit well with David's family members. They did not believe this as word began to spread around that not only was 48-year-old David suddenly gone and dead, but he had died via ingestion of antifreeze and his own accord, that he had taken his own life. And this was just something that they just didn't believe. So one specific person, this is Janet Poisson Farmer, this is David's ex-wife. She herself reached out to detectives and she told the detectives, "Something just doesn't feel right to me. I don't believe he would have done this."
That's really interesting, especially for an ex-wife. You know, obviously they had some turmoil of some sort to not be married anymore. And she's thought so much to be like, just isn't him.
Now, I will tell you, though, they do share a child together.
Sure.
So this is her son's father. And It's like, what the hell? So many wondered, okay, this guy's a hunter and he kept a gun under his bed. If he was truly so depressed and feeling so terribly inside that he was going to take his life, would he have chosen to ingest antifreeze, which is a terribly awful, like just terribly painful death, versus a quick, goodbye to the world?
Yeah, you'd probably research that before you do it, I would think, but especially with the internet nowadays.
Right. So as investigators began digging, they discovered that David Castor's will left everything to Stacy and her 2 daughters, and then nothing to his son, David Castor Jr. And this was an immediate red flag to everyone who knew David. The man owned many things. He owned a home, a business, campers, snowmobiles. And with nearly $50,000 that Stacy received, she immediately got to spending. That money was burning a quick hole in her pocket immediately. So she started to renovate the home immediately with the money, and it just gave family members the feeling that she was trying to erase every trace of David from this world. So when investigators wanted to speak with Stacy's first husband, because they're starting to hear scuttlebutt around town, like, this just doesn't feel right. They're like, you know what? Let's hear from Stacy's first husband, see what he has to say about how she was as a wife. Yeah. How was their marriage?
Makes sense.
So this is all happening just shortly after David's death, and this is the moment they learned that Michael Wallace was also dead. And ironically, he was buried directly next to where David was laid to rest. And they were left to wonder, was Stacy just a young woman who was a victim of terrible luck, or was there something far darker at play here? So as suspicions began to rise, officers could not help but recall finding a turkey baster when they went to the home and discovered David's body in bed. So they found this turkey baster in the kitchen garbage can of the Castor home, and the baster smelled of alcohol. And when it was eventually tested, it was found to contain antifreeze as well as David's DNA at the tip. And it contained no fingerprints at all. So detectives questioned if maybe he used it to ingest the antifreeze and basically put the baster farther down his throat to maybe avoid any kind of yucky taste.
I heard it actually doesn't taste bad.
They say it tastes very sweet, and you could slip it into somebody's drink without them knowing.
Yeah.
I have heard word that they might be changing that to put a bitter component into it.
Probably a good idea.
I would say so that if somebody is trying to poison you, you would recognize it in the drink. So they also were very much aware of the fact that as little as 2 shots of the poisonous substance could kill a human due to its sweet taste. It could also be easily disguised in a drink. So it's just kind of this turkey baster is just giving them pause. Did Stacy use it? And there were no fingerprints on it. Because obviously if David were to use it in the way that they initially thought, they would find his fingerprints on it. Or was Stacy wearing gloves or holding a rag in her hand when she was manipulating this baster? So the glass of antifreeze that was found at David's bedside contained 3 fingerprints, all of which belonged to Stacy. And that's very suspicious because she's telling investigators that he was severely depressed. He grabbed the bottle of Southern Comfort and he went and locked himself in that bedroom all weekend long. Why would his fingerprints not have been on that cup? So the fingerprints were also placed on the glass in a way that suggested that she had held the glass from the bottom. So if you're watching this on YouTube, she would have potentially held it from the bottom. And then, they're thinking to themselves, okay, could it have been that she was just unloading the dishwasher and she took it out that way and put it up in the cabinet that way? But then you would expect to see David's fingerprints on it as well. We've all had like a glass of wine before and you see all the just the fingerprints all over the glass. Sometimes it used to bother me so much when I used to drink wine that in between glasses, I would actually wash my glass because it just like kind of grossed me out.
Oh, that would bother you?
Yeah, that would bother me. Oh, you're a little psycho, Allison?
Yeah.
Yes, I am. So, they're trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. So it's like, did something innocent happen or did something terrible happen? So they're thinking, or instead of just taking it out of the dishwasher that way, had she held the cup from the bottom and walked up to David and encouraged him, already feeling ill? Am I about ready to pour my drink?
Yeah, you're going to pour it on your computer. Please stop doing that.
Okay, please stop tilting your drink. So their wheels are turning right now and they're trying to think what may have played out.
Like, let's not just assume that she did something without thinking it all the way through and making sure that, we're not just jumping into conclusions here.
Exactly. So with the evidence from the Castor home, paired with the fact that Stacy's first husband had also died a sudden death only 5 years earlier, the case started to be looked at rather than a suicide as a homicide. However, detectives knew that in order to bring charges against Stacy, they would need more solid evidence. So this was the point that investigators began looking into Michael Wallace's death, and they learned that Stacy had declined an autopsy, again, despite the fact that he was only 38 years old. You would think you would want to know if your 38-year-old's husband's heart was in bad shape because that could potentially put your girls at risk for early onset of heart disease.
Just so you know, if you died, I wouldn't have an autopsy done because I'm too cheap. I'd be like, how much does it cost? $300? Nah, we're good. Just
Lord almighty.
Put her in the ground. Put her right in the ground.
Do you hear yourself?
It's $300. I don't know how much it is.
How is an autopsy $300?
I don't know. How much
Did you
is an
price this out?
autopsy?
How the hell would I know, Mike?
No, let me ask ChatGPT.
Oh my gosh.
Hold on.
So detectives also learned that in the months before his death, he told his doctor that he had the sensation of being intoxicated because, like I said, he was having trouble with balance and with speech. So he said it almost feels like I'm drunk, despite the fact that I have consumed not a sip of alcohol. And this just so happens to be a classic symptom of antifreeze poisoning.
So you got 2 people here looking like antifreeze.
Okay, Mike, how much does a frickin' autopsy?
Yeah, you're definitely not having one. It's between a private autopsy is $3 to $7 grand. That's insane. So you're definitely not having one. So guys, just if Allison happens to die, like it's not because I necessarily did something. I mean, maybe, but probably not. It's just I don't want to put an autopsy her through the autopsy because you're
I'm already going to be gone.
Yeah,
so you can.
No, I don't want to. If I died, don't put me in an autopsy. I don't want you spending
Of course, I would want to know if genetically speaking we have children together.
Yeah, you win some, you lose some.
Oh my goodness. This is what I live with, people. Feel sorry for me. So I will tell you, I'm sure many of us know what antifreeze is. It's an essential fluid for a car. pretty much right up there with importance of gasoline and oil. So it protects the engine from overheating while protecting the cooling system from freezing in the winter. So its most active ingredient also just so happens to be the poisonous ingredient, and this is ethylene glycol. So initial symptoms of consumption are subtle, and they are easy for me to say. They are similar to feeling intoxicated. You do feel that woozy feeling, you feel unbalanced, you feel drunk. So it's similar to what you would feel when ingesting alcohol, which is ethanol. And this is because the central nervous system is beginning to slow. Chemically, it is not very far from alcohol. However, the human body reacts to the two different substances very differently. In small amounts, our bodies are able to metabolize alcohol, which is then expelled without damaging the cells to some degree. We all know that if you are a heavy alcohol user and you continue to do so, you can definitely die from it. But it's not nearly as lethal immediately as ethylene glycol.
You know, that made me look up Fireball, because your brother was talking about something like a couple weeks ago. He's a big conspiracy guy. And he's like, did you know in Fireball they have something glycol and they can't even sell it in Europe? And I was wondering if it was ethylene glycol. They said, no, it's propylene glycol.
Which is a component of ethylene glycol.
Okay, so maybe that's where the confusion comes in. But it's generally recognized as safe by the FDA. But in Europe, it probably isn't safe. So it is. So that is kind of weird.
It's not like alcohol is a health food by any means.
That is correct.
But it's not nearly as toxic as what we're talking about here.
Yeah, so you got two people that basically died from antifreeze.
So on the other hand, antifreeze is quickly absorbed into the body where it crystallizes, and the true damage begins as quickly as within 30 minutes of ingestion. So the crystals can collect in your kidneys and affect your kidney function, while ethylene glycol forms acidic chemicals in the body, which then throws off your body's natural acid-base balance. And this affects the entire nervous system as well as the lungs and the heart. You can go into respiratory failure, etc. So according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, as little as 2 ounces of antifreeze can kill a dog, 1 teaspoon can kill a cat, and 2 tablespoons are hazardous to a child. So it just kind of is a reminder that if you're using it in your garage, please be careful with it, because God forbid a stray cat comes wandering into your garage. It does have that sweet taste.
Or a stray kid. I mean,
anything.
It looks delicious. It looks like Ecto Cooler. Like they need to make it look like black tar or something. Like it looks fantastic.
To me, it looks revolting. Like you're drinking Gatorade right now, and I think that looks revolting.
Yeah, I mean, I shouldn't. It has yellow 5 and all these things.
That yellow color, I just don't like that. So those who ingest a significant quantity of antifreeze can die within 24 to 72 hours. Most commonly, death is preceded by kidney failure. So that's ultimately what gets you, is your kidneys fail. So because it is absorbed and chemically converted relatively quickly, antifreeze ingestion can be very difficult to detect, because odds are you're not thinking when a person gets rushed to the hospital and they're basically dying, you don't automatically think poison. You think it's just something else.
You mentioned that in I think last week's episode or whatever, and it was recently, and you were like, an autopsy was done and there was no poison detected. And we've been through it multiple times that not every poison is tested for.
No.
So it could slip through the cracks.
True. So like I said before, it is colorless and odorless, and it can be slipped unknowingly into a victim's drink. So when detectives obtained and reviewed a copy of 38-year-old Michael Wallace's medical records, they learned that he had an absolutely normal heart and he had no past medical history other than having dealt with a hernia at one point in time. So you wouldn't just jump to conclusions and think that this guy just suddenly fell ill. And not to mention the fact that he was feeling so sick in the weeks before.
Well, people just drop dead from heart attacks way more often than getting killed by their wives or 100%.
So I agree with that.
I can see where they're coming from. It's like, do we want to do it? Maybe. I don't know.
But what would have made him sit up on the couch and just vomit across the coffee table?
I don't know.
So this is despite the fact that when Stacy was talking to investigators, her late husband was just riddled with disease and illness. So it's like, no, that's not true at all.
Well, that's a good clue. That's some suspicion for sure.
Right. So based on David Castor's death, paired with the fact that Michael had been ill in the weeks before his death with classic symptoms of antifreeze poisoning, investigators did not believe that he died of a heart attack as doctors initially theorized. So in September of 2007, this is more than 7.5 years after his sudden death, they received a court's permission to exhume his body.
Yes.
In order to take a closer look at the circumstances surrounding his death. Something that Stacy at this point in time had no idea was happening.
Oh, man, that she's got to be PO'd about that.
You know, I have to say, I'm actually surprised she had him buried and did not have him cremated.
And I would imagine she would think that she's the one that has the power to say whether they can exhume his body or not. And I would think so. I was like, man, she's not going to let them exhume his body, but they got to, I mean, yeah, it's kind of like getting a search warrant and you own a house. It's like, sorry, you have no choice.
Right, exactly. You have no choice because, of course, a guilty person's not going to be like, oh, yeah, of course, exhume him up.
Right.
But I'm just shocked she didn't have him cremated. So after Michael's casket was unearthed from the ground, it was transferred via ambulance to the medical examiner's office for an autopsy. Sergeant Michael Norton recalls receiving a phone call a few days later from the medical examiner regarding the results of Michael's autopsy. So, Mike, I have to ask you, do you think Michael just died of a classic heart attack?
No, I'm going to guess it'd have to do something with antifreeze or some kind of poison.
Yes. So the medical examiner dropped a bombshell and confirmed what they had all been theorizing. So the man's body was loaded with crystals, is what the medical examiner said.
Oh, my God.
So this is something that is characteristic of antifreeze poisoning. So since these crystals never go away, you could exhume a body in 100 years and the crystals would still potentially be there.
Ooh, for those of you thinking about killing somebody, probably not a good way to do it.
Right. So the crystals, despite the passage of 7.5 years, remained in Michael's organs and Stacy was caught. So this was the moment that detectives were sure that rather than Stacy being an unfortunate, grieving two-time widower, they were dealing with a double homicide and that Stacey Castor had likely poisoned both of her husbands to death. So rather than proceeding with maybe what could have been a messy divorce and the splitting of money and assets and yada yada, she decided to go ahead and choose murder instead. So with the results of Michael's autopsy, detectives obtained a warrant to wiretap Stacy's phones and set up cameras outside her home in order to monitor her comings and goings.
Now we're talking. This is good police work.
Yes. So when Stacy was interviewed for a second time now, as a result of the investigation, the detectives noted that she looked very nervous this time around. She was pacing around. She was surprised that they were there because she thought, I'm good.
Yeah, and as a police officer, you got to love having that power in your hands, knowing that like you have the nuts, as they call it in poker. You have the best hand. It's like, we already know you are guilty as sin, and you have no idea that we know this yet. So let's have a conversation.
Not at all, because to her understanding, Michael Wallace is buried in the cemetery and the medical examiners signed off on David Castor, death by suicide.
Oh man, I would have loved to have been a cop in this situation. I'd be so excited. I'd be so giddy about like, oh, we're going to get this chick tonight. She's so stupid. She has no idea.
Well, we'll just wait to hear how stupid she is.
Good.
So she was asked about the 2 glasses that were found at David's bedside on the nightstand when his body was found. So the glass closest to his side of the bed contained a green liquid. Stacy told the detectives that at some point she poured her husband some cranberry juice, and they asked if she remembered, which glass did you use? So this was the moment that Stacy made a terrible faux pas, if you might say. So after she was handed a photo of the glasses, she responded, well, when I poured the antifreeze.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's so awesome how stupid she is. I love stupid criminals. This is making me so happy. I'm so sorry about the deaths, but I'm so happy that she's so stupid. Oh, it's great.
And then she quickly stops herself and says, I mean, the cranberry juice, you're confusing me.
Oh, my God, that is amazing. Were they just like, did you just get that? Did you pick that up on the audio? Oh, my God. They're like, wait, stop the tape. We get that? Yep. Okay, we're good.
So she quickly realized her mistake and stopped talking and requested an attorney at this point in time.
Did I just say antifreeze? Can I get an attorney?
Can you believe that?
Wow, yes.
So as the detectives picked up the folder that held the photo of the glasses, Stacy couldn't help but notice that there was another photo in the envelope, and this was a photo of the turkey baster. So she asked, well, what's that? Why is it there? And the detective responded, "Don't worry about it. The interview's over." And they left her sweating.
Oh God, they had so much. They're doing exactly what I thought, and just like, oh, she's so cooked right now.
Right.
They just like they probably left that picture out there, be like, I don't know. You said you wanted a lawyer, so we'll tell you.
We're done talking.
Yeah, see you later.
So in the meantime, authorities went to visit their daughter, Michael and Stacy's daughter. This is 20-year-old Ashley, and she is away at college. She had just started going there after she had just recently graduated high school. So they're telling her, hey, just to let you know, we believe that your mother is responsible for your father's death and David Castor's death. So she's freaked out, this poor 20-year-old girl. So when the investigators left, she immediately called her mom. And of course, investigators can hear this because they tapped her phone.
They probably did it on purpose. They're like, oh, let's go talk to her and let's listen.
Let's rattle things up, shake things up a bit.
Brilliant, man. Brilliant. Love it.
So Ashley calls home to tell them, like, oh my gosh, Mom, the detectives just left. This is unbelievable.
Tell me it's not true.
Yeah, and Ashley was on her mom's side. She did not believe whatsoever that her mom would ever have done such a thing or have been capable of doing it.
Yeah.
So during their conversation, since Ashley was so upset, Stacy suggested that, Ashley come home, they meet up, and they have a drink together so that they could unwind and talk. And she says, "We've had a rough week. Let's get drunk." And Ashley is not yet 21 years old. This is not something her mom had ever suggested in the past, that they drink alcohol together. Not ever. God. So she's like, "Oh, sweet. Cool. My mom wants to have drinks with me. Let's do it. All right, Mom, I'll be home." So Ashley recalls her mom handing her a plastic cup, and it contained the first drink that she mixed up for her. And the next thing she knew, she woke up and she was in her bedroom. So just figuring that she passed out from a night of drinking, she did feel a little bit hungover. Regardless, she got up and she went to school. So when she got back home after classes, despite the fact that it wasn't even yet noon, her mom is suggesting, hey, let's have drinks together again.
What a piece of garbage. God, I want to swear so bad. I just want to keep this one a little clean, but I hate her so much.
Yep. Evil. Pure evil.
Oh, there's so many decent people that just want like kids and they want to hang out, and like this dumb person is like trying to kill her own daughter.
And you think to yourself, this girl has already gone through losing her father. Now she's lost her stepfather. She's 20 years old. She's trying to get through school. She's believing her mom's innocence and calling her mom outraged that these detectives would ever suggest such a horrible thing.
It makes me so angry because there's like a lot of good kids out there that just have horrible parents. Like if you're like a 20 something and like your parents are steering you wrong, I'm so sorry. And like, I feel so much for you, and you're better than that.
So the following morning, Stacy's younger daughter, Bree, is going into Ashley's room, and she finds her sister unresponsive on her bed. Her eyes were wide open. So despite the fact that she was not responding, Bree said that her sister looked so scared, and how awful for Bree that she had to find Ashley like this. So she runs screaming and crying into her mom's bedroom, telling her, "You gotta call 911. Stacy yelled to the dispatcher that she needed an ambulance and elaborated, "My daughter had taken some pills. It sounds like there's something in her throat." So she went on to tell the dispatcher that Ashley had consumed an entire bottle of vodka and quite a few doses of medications. So this was the third time in 8 years that Stacy had called 911 for help. So she explained that Ashley was conscious, she was making noises, but she was not breathing normally and she was beginning to vomit. So while Bree was in her sister's room, she is in the room while her mom is on the phone with the dispatcher. And Bree comes upon a piece of paper, and it looked like a suicide note. It was typed. So as Detective Valerie Brogan arrived to the house, Ashley was being removed on a stretcher, and the sergeant handed her the letter. So now she's reading through this letter, and she's realizing that she's reading not only a suicide note, but also a confession. So the typed letter was more than 750 words long, and Ashley wrote that she not only poisoned her dad, Michael Wallace, with antifreeze, but also rat poison. And she did what she did because she wanted to be sure that he couldn't be mean to her or her mom anymore. After his death, they had been happy together for a while until their mom met and married David Castor. And the letter indicated that he never loved any of them, but poisoning David had been much harder since her mom was always there. According to Ashley's letter, on the Friday before he died, her mom went to the post office, so she took her opportunity to mix antifreeze in a glass with soda, and she gave it to her stepdad. So the letter indicated that with Michael, his death was far quicker, and it happened in a day or so after Ashley mixed the antifreeze in with Gatorade. So after David locked himself into the bedroom, Ashley got into the room using a key while her mom was asleep on the couch, and she tried to get him to drink more antifreeze. The letter lacked any punctuation, and it was peppered with childlike grammatical errors. Throughout the note, Ashley referred to her mom as mommy and wrote how sorry she was. She didn't want her mom to be punished for what she had done, as she expressed how much she loved her mom. So as Ashley arrived at the hospital, doctors found her in a catatonic state. Her heartbeat was extremely irregular, and staff feared that she might not make it. So, however, several hours later, thankfully, Ashley began to regain consciousness, and as she became more responsive and able to have a conversation, Sergeant Norton asked her if she tried to kill herself. However, Ashley was completely confused. She had no idea what he was talking about. She had no idea that any of this had taken place. The last thing she recalled was laying down to take a nap, and now she's waking up in the hospital. So before she laid down, Ashley remembered that her mom was saying that she might not be around for a while because, she had the sneaking suspicion that the police were moving in on her and that she was going to go to jail. So she told Ashley, since I might be away when you turn 21, we should take the time and celebrate together now. So Stacy handed her daughter a cup, and as Ashley took a sip, she winced and complained about how terrible it tasted. So Stacy told her, I probably just put too much vodka in it. Here's a straw, mix it up, and then try to put the straw farther back into the back of your throat so that you don't taste it.
Like a turkey
and just
baster.
Drink it up. Kind of like a turkey baster, huh? So she recalled feeling very tired after she did drink the drink, so she went to lay down. And that is the last thing Ashley remembered before she woke up in the ICU. So according to the doctors, the young girl had been only literally minutes from dying. So had Bree not walked into her room when she did, Ashley would not be here to tell her side of the story.
My God, what a horrible mother, wife, human being. Like this piece of garbage, Stacy, man. She's got to go down. Like, oh man, it's like she desperately wanted to be innocent and not be found guilty for killing her husband, even she knew she was guilty. And then she went as far as to try to kill her own daughter.
That is the opposite of what a parent's innate, built-in, knee-jerk. What's the word I'm trying to think of?
Our jobs. Our jobs are to protect our kids.
The natural reaction is to protect our kids, and she's doing the exact opposite.
Yeah,
of that.
She was born with something screws loose or something.
Yeah, evil enough that you would be okay with not only killing your child, but letting their name go down like that. So when investigators are now, of course, asking Ashley about everything, they're talking to her about this typed suicide/confession note. Just like before, she had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. She was adamant that she had nothing to do with her father's death, her stepdad's death, nor had she tried to kill herself. She told them, "You need to talk to my mom for answers." And this was the moment when Ashley was positive that her mom was responsible for all of it, including her own attempted murder in hopes of shifting the blame for her dad and stepfather's murders.
What a crazy, 24 hours where it's like you go hearing that your mom's about to be indicted or whatever, brought into jail for killing your dad. And then going there and then waking up in an ICU and being like, holy cow, my mom just tried to kill me too. Like trying to say, no way, there's no way my mom could do this, to being in the hospital because your mom just tried to kill you. Like that is crazy.
Yeah. And then the doctors are showing her this note, like this was found next to your, in your bedroom. And you're like, I didn't put this there.
Yeah. That's
and
crazy.
then to be told by the doctors, you were literally minutes from dying.
And the natural reaction, if that was actually the case, would be like, yeah, I'm so sorry I did that, whatever. It's not like, what is this? I don't even know what this is.
Right. So a search of Stacy's home computer proved that this is where this typed confession/suicide note was typed. Easy for me to say. So it was both written and printed during a time when Ashley could not have done it because she was at school. So investigators fully believe that Stacy was responsible for killing both of her husbands, but never in their wildest dreams did they think while they were doing this investigation that her daughters were at risk. They never ever thought she would ever take it this far. So as one of the detectives read through the letter, something just jumped out. During their interview with Stacy, when she made that faux pas, she referred to antifreeze as anti-free. So this was something that she had spelled out 4 times in this suicide/confession note.
Wow, not only is she stupid, like as far as making decisions, but she's actually like mentally stupid.
Right. So rather than saying antifreeze, she typed anti-free 4 times.
Perfect.
Yep. So while she was smoking a cigarette outside the hospital where she's pretending to be a concerned mother, Stacy was arrested and charged with second-degree murder in the death of her second husband, David Castor, and the attempted murder of her daughter, as well as for forging David's will. Because remember, he didn't leave a thing to his own son.
Yeah.
Never would have happened. So this is a diabolical human being.
Oh, no conscience whatsoever.
So throughout it all, Stacy maintained her innocence. And I watched documentaries and you're looking at her face like, how are you maintaining this lie?
Because she's out of her mind. And like anybody who's like so far down the hole, they're willing to say anything.
She was emphatic that she would have died for her children. And she said, my kids were my life. I could never do that to Ashley. Meanwhile, she became known to the press as the Black Widow. So during the trial, Stacy's discrepancies and lies were brought to light. She initially told detectives that she never checked on David before she called 911 for a welfare check. However, she told the first officer at the scene that she called 911 after going into the house and being unable to get a response from him. She also indicated that she called home every 30 to 45 minutes that morning after David failed to show up for work, while phone records proved that this was a lie. She had called one time at 12:54 p.m. She told a detective that she heard her husband fall to the bedroom floor while she was in the living room, and she claimed that she immediately called a friend for help to get him back to bed. This happened on Saturday, 2 days before his death. However, she told another detective that she was trying to help David back to bed when he fell, and she ended up leaving him on the floor alone in the house for more than 2 hours before she got help from a friend to then get him back to bed. So she calls her friend, this is Michael Coleman, to get help to get her husband in bed. So Michael testified that when he came to help Stacy get David back to bed, he seemed very intoxicated. But he suspected that there was just something more going on. He's like, this is way more than David drinking Southern Comfort and laying in bed. And he was concerned, and he told Stacy, you really need to call an ambulance to get David to the hospital. And Stacy says, no, I'm just going to let him sleep it off. So when she'd been asked why only her fingerprints had been found on the glass at the bedside that contained the antifreeze, she stopped her interview, of course, in the police station. So it's like so ridiculous that she's trying to pin this on her daughter when it's only her fingerprints that are on the cup.
Yeah, like it can't be anybody else.
No.
This is you.
So Stacy maintained in court that it was Ashley who had murdered both her own father as well as her stepfather. So this would mean that Ashley would have murdered her own father when she was 11 years old.
Right.
So in response to this, Stacy says, if you listen to the news or read the paper, you would know that kids do horrific things like this every single day.
Yeah, not crazy wives.
So during the trial, the jury listened to the testimony of more than 50 witnesses, including Ashley, while prosecutors argued that Stacy's motive was collecting her husband's life insurance policies. During Ashley's tearful testimony, Stacy showed not an ounce of emotion whatsoever. Me, myself, being a mother, I had tears in my eyes watching Ashley's, on the stand. And
yeah, the poor baby. I know she's not a baby, or she's 20 something. And it's like, your mom tried to kill you, you poor thing. All you want to do is give her a hug and be like, you don't deserve that. Like nobody deserves that.
I will tell you though, she was very well spoken and she should be very proud of herself. Meanwhile, the defense tried to paint a picture of a jealous daughter who wanted her father dead because he was closer to her little sister.
Yuck.
Gross.
Ugh. How do those lawyers sleep at night? It's crazy. We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, I don't know. So the jury heard about Ashley's 2 prior suicide attempts, which she wrote about in a letter to her boyfriend. So of course they're using this pain that she's gone through to support the fact that, she tried to kill herself and she killed her father and her stepfather. So when Stacy took the stand herself, she was testifying in her own defense, of course. She calmly spoke about the most terrifying moment of her life when she walked into Ashley's room and found her daughter unresponsive. When she was cross-examined, a phone call was referenced during the time in which Stacy's house was wiretapped. So investigators can listen to this conversation she's having on the phone as clear as day. So while Stacy is chatting away on the phone, what can you hear in the background but the clicking of a keyboard? And this completely correlated with the time that Ashley's suicide confession note was typed and printed, which was a time, like I said, that Ashley was not even home.
Okay, that's pretty good.
So, I mean, you hear Stacy because they know exactly when it was typed and when it was printed.
Yeah.
It corresponded exactly with that phone call, and you could hear the clickety-clack of the keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine? She was chatting on the phone while she was multitasking while writing her daughter's suicide confession letter.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what we're going to have for like dinner tonight.
That's sick.
It's like, oh, it's not that surprising just knowing what she's done.
So as the trial came to an end, the jury deliberated over the course of 3 days, which to me is kind of shocking. On February 5th, 2009, Stacey Castor, Mike, what was she found?
Guilty as hell.
She was found guilty as hell of second-degree murder of David Castor and the attempted murder of her daughter, Ashley Wallace, as well as for forging David's will. She was given the maximum sentence of 51 and the third years to life in prison. So because she would be spending the rest of her life behind bars, authorities chose not to pursue charges for Michael Wallace's murder. I found that kind of strange.
Yeah.
There was black and white proof that he had died from antifreeze poisoning. Crystals were all throughout his organs.
I wonder what Michael's family thinks about that.
I don't think they would appreciate it.
No.
But they were also at the same point very relieved that she was going to be behind bars for the rest of her life, and they knew the truth. Everyone knows the truth.
And maybe they didn't press charges or something. They're like, whatever, she's going to be gone forever.
Right. So they did use the evidence of what was found in Michael's body after he was exhumed during the trial. So it did help put the nail in the coffin. I mean, that's kind of a sick, reference. Thank you. So during her sentencing, Ashley spoke of how she both loved and hated her mom at the same time. Her mom, who was once her best friend. And through it all, Stacy sat without emotion.
Ugh.
If I watch a Hallmark commercial, I'll start weeping.
About your kids or something, like coming home from college or whatever, that Folgers one. I don't know. It's just,
forget it. Yeah. If I even think about our kids going away to college, I will start to cry. If I read someone else's story of their kids going to college, I start to cry.
Publix always has some good ones around the holidays.
Yeah. If you live in a state that has a Publix grocery store, they can really get you. They'll pull out your heartstrings. So to hear her daughter giving this tearful speech, and she sat there without just anything on her face. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So Ashley later indicated that she was very much relieved that her mother got what she deserved, and really most importantly, that she would be unable to hurt anyone else. Both she and Bree cut all ties with their mom. So now 7 years into her sentence, on June 11th, 2016, 48-year-old Stacey Castor was found dead in her cell at the women's maximum security prison, in Bedford Hills, New York. And then an autopsy ironically proved she died from a heart attack.
Oh, look at that. So somebody actually died from a heart attack.
Yep.
Good.
So no foul play was suspected.
Well, it's a happy ending, I'd say.
So until the day that she died, Stacy maintained her innocence. She was adamant that her daughter Ashley was the one responsible. And I find it really disgusting. Stacy's mom, this is Judy Eaton, also believes that her granddaughter was responsible and that Stacy was innocent.
Go to hell, Judy Eaton. You suck ass.
Despite the fact that not one single piece of evidence tied Ashley to the murders.
You just see them as just trash balls, just like my daughter, not that they have the Southern accent. Everybody before you come after me. Really? I don't know. I just view them as just the scum of the earth. Okay. Not that Southern people have Southern scum of the earth. Anyways, let's change the subject. Stacy sucks. Let's put that, and she's dead. And we should all celebrate that fact.
So Stacey Castor is not the first husband killer to be dubbed Black Widow. So obviously we know that a Black Widow is a venomous spider that then eats their mates. So, however, she proved to be a special kind of evil who was willing to go as far as killing her own child and framing her for the murders that she committed herself.
Special is kind of a bad word. It's special's, usually
a special
good thing.
kind of evil.
Yeah, it's definitely a horrible kind of evil.
I mean, she is the icing on the SHIT cake.
Wow, I wouldn't want to eat that cake.
I don't want that cake.
Yeah, anybody that's had several dead past husbands or wives or whatever, you always call them the Black Widow. It's you have somebody in your family that we do. We refer to as that.
So had Bree not walked into her sister's room that morning and found her nearly unresponsive in bed, Ashley would have died, and Stacy could have gotten away with 3 murders. Thankfully, her life was saved and the truth was exposed. Her calculated lies, deception, and forged evidence painted a picture of a woman that was driven by nothing but greed, with no regard whatsoever for those who loved her, including her own daughter. And that is a story of Stacey Castor.
You got to think she was a narcissist too, right?
Oh, are you kidding me? When she was on, I don't know if it was 2020 or something like that, but she looked the camera in the eye and was like, nope, I didn't do this.
With the lack of remorse and just being able to lie to yourself and I'm sure if she probably would have taken a lie detector test, that she probably would have passed it by this point.
Because she believed her lies so fully.
Yeah, convinced her own brain, be like, no, there's no way I was responsible for this.
But she was very fidgety and nervous when the detective showed back up to talk to her a second time.
Because she had that little mistake, she knew she was had.
Yep.
That's, man, what a piece of garbage. And ding dong, the thing that rhymes with witch is dead.
Yep. Terrible human being.
It's so good she's gone.
Absolutely. But we thank you guys so much for being here with us. I can't tell you how much we do appreciate our listeners. I will tell you, though, if you're running out of content, you're looking for something more, we've got you covered, because once a week we deliver a bonus episode, and we will welcome you over at Patreon or Apple subscriptions with open arms, and you can become part of the Crime and Coffee Couple Club.
Man, you say that so much better than I do. I shouldn't even be part of the show just to be like, That's basically all I give to the show. I know I do some other things, but
you do. You do a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
But you do a great job.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You're so sweet. But thank you guys so much for being here. And if you want to head on over and leave us a 5-star review, we would also appreciate that too. And until next time.